Okay, wonderful. Hi, I'm Buffy or Rebecca, either one is fine. I will be talking to you today about Agloe, the fictional town developed in the 1930s to stop map pirates from stealing maps, because that's what pirates do, they steal stuff. I was told that I only had 20 minutes, so I just deleted a whole bunch of random slides, so we're going to see how this goes. So, a little bit about me. This is a picture of me at work. There's a lot going on there. But basically, I'm a security consultant, a Python developer by night. I'm also a witch. I cast the spells over the computers, and then I hope that everything works the way I want. So, a really quick note about what I'm going to be talking about today. Security isn't a one-size-fits-all. This solution is not a one-size-fits-all, but I definitely encourage you to at least go out and research it, give it a try, see if you like it. Yeah, so don't just sort of shrug it off and be like, oh, that looks terrible and so much work. So, paper towns, as some of you may know if you've read the book by John Green, I think, are locations or towns that appear on maps, but they don't actually exist literally. They appear on paper. There are a lot of examples of these. I'm going to be talking about Agloe in particular, which is one of the more well-known ones. I think I've explained this part. So, a brief history. In 1909, the General Drafting Company is founded by Otto G. Lindbergh. He was an immigrant from Finland who came to the US and basically started this map-making company. In the 30s, he partnered with his assistant Ernest Alpers and assigned the name Agloe, which is made up of their initials, and created this little dirt town in the middle of Rockland, New York. If you go there, it's just green pastures and very pretty. So in the 1950s, a general store was built at that intersection and was given the name of the Agloe General Store. This appeared on the ESO maps, and an important part of the history is that ESO is a gas company that Alpers was supplying the maps for, because that's how it used to work. You would have one company who would do all of your drafting, make all of your maps, and then you would sell those in your gas store. But at some point, Agloe was also added to Rand McNally maps, and Rand McNally is a competing company. And so basically what happened is Ernest Alper was like, haha, I got you dirty map-stealing pirates. But not really, because what ended up happening was Rand McNally was getting their information from the actual New York place of places. It's a big database. They had databases in the 1930s. And so because the general store was there by that point, so technically the town existed, but not really. And so basically no piracy could be shown, because the thing with maps is that they describe what is. They're sort of like algorithms in that weird abstract way where you can't really, because like algorithms basically are a series of operations, and so multiple people can do stuff the same way. It's the funny thing about patents. So basically what ended up happening was a few years later, the shop closed down, because that's what happens when you build a shop in the middle of nowhere. And it's a really, really like dull story up until that point. So you're like, what does any of this have to do with computers? You're talking about maps and pirates, and none of it makes sense. But it does, because paper towns exist to catch the bad guys when they're stealing stuff. And so we can apply a similar concept to when bad guys are trying to steal your data. Or when you're trying to get, oh wait, let's go back a step, sorry. Perimeter security, when the bad guys are trying to get your data. Because we all know that this is how hacking happens. You plug a mouse into the PowerPoint and everything is good. And this is because like most places apply, or theoretically they apply a defense in depth approach. So you have your really strong fortifications on the outside, and then there are different fortifications on the inside, and slowly they go in. There's a much better talk about depth and defense later on today. But the problem is most places don't do this as well as they could. And so what happens is you show up and you're just like, haha, I'm in. And you end up in the soft, gooey caramel center of the company. And then you're like, haha, I have all your data. See you later. There's another use case. So if you haven't seen A Stranger Calls, just look away for a second. The other one that these tokens can help you catch out is insider threats. So people within your organization who are trying to steal intellectual property or just generally be bad people because they're really mad at their line manager or something. And so that's where my talk comes in. It all makes sense now. I'm not up on a stage rambling incoherently. And so yeah, it's basically a trap. Haha, got you bad guys. I like to refer to it, if you're a gardener, as scat for hackers. You just spray some on your infrastructure and then they just go away. Shubs has also mentioned that the use of Canary tokens sort of terrifies him when he's on an engagement, because basically he doesn't know what's real and what's going to tell them that he's in there doing the things that he's paid to do. So take it from Shubs, they're really good. And the results are generally like this. So when you've got other issues going on and you're not really focusing on the bad people within your infrastructure, Canary tokens just come and throw like the giant exercise ball at you and go, hey, something's happening. Of course, terms and conditions apply, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I'll quickly go through the anatomy of a canary. There are no pictures of actual birds, so it's fine. I mean like dissected birds. It's PG-13. So one of the most important qualities is that they should be bird-shaped, because it's a canary, right? But no, seriously, they need to be enticing to hackers and bad people, and the people that you're trying to catch out. And that, of course, depends on who you're trying to target. If it's insider threats, they're going to look a little bit different to if you're trying to protect against people actually breaking into your network to try and do nefarious things. They should be yellow, or in some cases red in color. And it needs to be possible to detect. If you can't detect a canary has been triggered, if that's because of a lack of logging or monitoring, or because you've rolled your own canaries and there's no way for it to call back to whatever you're using, they're not super helpful because you don't really know that something has gone wrong. And finally, they need to be able to sing. After 2 weeks, I went and did a whole bunch of research about buying canary. They should sing after 2 weeks if they're like little baby canaries. But they need to not be useful for anything. So if you've rolled like AWS tokens, don't apply all of the permissions. Don't put resources star. That's not good. So yeah, if you are rolling your own canaries for internal use, make sure that if people do get a hold of them, they don't actually let them get anywhere. So we're going to be talking about a certain type of canary, but before we get into that, I want to give an honourable mention. This is another tool that I really like, and it's Project Space Crab by Atlassian. It basically allows you to do AWS tokens en masse. So basically you can just deploy a whole bunch of tokens at once. And so if you're a big user of AWS, it's really helpful to just get them out there really quickly. But the most important questions is it a crab in space or is the space in the crab? So basically it works by creating a whole bunch of deny all policies on tokens. So for AWS people, for non-AWS people, it means that you're basically limiting it to the only function that you can't disable, and it gives you very little to no information back. It just tells you that there's a token. And so yeah, it's really, really helpful. So, on to the feature of our presentation today. We're going to be talking about the Canary tokens by Thinkst Applied Research. I'm not affiliated with them, but when they saw my talk at PyCon originally, they did send me like a t-shirt and some stickers and a fidget spinner. and it's been really, really good. But I'm still going to say bad stuff. They haven't swayed my opinion at all. But there are a whole bunch of other services like this. There's a whole bunch of research. This isn't a new concept. It's been talked about since about 1994. So people have had this idea in mind for a very long time. Yeah, so what sort of tokens are supported, Beck? Let's find out. This is my favorite one. It's the most versatile of them. It's the web bug or the URL. I have an example for you. A very, very good email that was not sent by me to me. But basically, yeah, this link here is a Canary token, so I just leave an unread email that says, haha, this is very important, I haven't read it. And so when bad people come along and they're obviously going through my emails, they'll be like, sweet, I can get very important infrastructure data. And then they click that link and bow, denied. Yes, one point for me. You can also do just general email addresses. I didn't configure the demo box that I set up for myself with an actual domain name, so for me it's just all IP addresses, so they don't actually look that interesting. But an example is chucking one in a users.sql database or whatever database you use. Of course, this can be a problem if you're using that database for mailing lists, because you're just going to go through and trigger off every canary that you've got. And there are more sophisticated ways to get through that, but I'm not going through them because I'm not that smart and haven't worked that out yet. So yeah, really, really simple. You can chuck this in your contacts or on your phone, and if anyone is snooping through your stuff, basically you can be alerted and be like, I caught someone looking through my stuff, burn everything. Of course, the AWS credentials. This I've mentioned when I mentioned the space crabs, but an example of that is like this. I just chuck it in my AWS credentials file under my default one, because I shouldn't be using my default one, I should be using my specially created ones. And then DNS tokens. So I actually use these ones in my host files. You can also leave it in your bash history or your SSH config, which is this file for me, or in like a servers.txt if you want to be really, really crafty about it. Basically, anyone who has seen that I've tried to access this staging.dc internal is going to be like, haha, can get to the domain controller. Denied. And one of the things that makes Canary tokens by Thinkst stand out a little bit is their QR code tokens. So basically, if you have a scenario in probably a larger organization where, you know, when a guest comes to your facilities and they want to get onto the Wi-Fi, they need to check in with reception. Reception gives them the access details. And basically, you can just put a whole lot of signs around like this that are like, hey, scan for the guest Wi-Fi credentials. But of course, you know that that's not true, because when they checked in, they should have got those details. And so you get a nice little alert like this. Ooh, it's exciting. And you'll notice that, you know, I didn't actually put my token reminder as anything useful, I just put example. But you get things like the time, the token type, and like details about them. You can also configure Google Maps as well. Because Google Maps changed their API, I've struggled a little bit to get that working because you need to give them money, and no, I'm okay, thanks. So yeah, it's really important to leave an actually useful reminder. That way you actually know what's happening and it's not just like example. Which example, Beck? I don't know. So that's all well and good, but let's talk about some of the benefits and inconveniences. They have a really low signal to noise ratio when they're deployed correctly, and that's like the little asterisk terms and conditions. If you're going to put them on people's desktops and then not tell them that like they've suddenly got this new file on their desktop, everyone's going to click it at once and be like, oh no, what is this file? I don't know. And you're going to get a million tokens come through at once. And you're going to have a really bad time. But otherwise, not like the Canaries they took into mines where, you know, they would sing and then if there was a gas leak, they would stop singing. These should only sing when there's something going wrong. they can be a little bit complex to deploy for established systems, and I'm basing this on my own experiences where I have no understanding of logging and monitoring tools at all. I have so many trial accounts for like Datadog, PagerDuty, all of the other ones. I even looked into setting up my own Elasticsearch like configuration so I could be like, look at my example, and I was just like, this is too hard. I normally do have a demo, but because I only had 20 minutes, I took that out. I just had like a webhook set up to go to PagerDuty, and it sent me nothing useful. Don't do that. It's just like demo information, and it's like, an alert was triggered. Thank you, that's really helpful. But once you do have them integrated, it works really well because they're cross-platform, and you can just put them on boxes and in files, and they just work. It's really nice once you work out how to put it into your actual system and use monitoring tools. But of course, they only give you a small amount of view into what's going on because you know something has been triggered, but you don't know how long that person has been in your system. You don't know, oh, I've only got a minute left. I'm gonna run through the next slides real quick. So the good thing is it's supplied as a Docker container. If you don't like Docker, that's a bad thing. But I swore off Docker years ago. I love Docker now. Docker is amazing. It's so easy. The solution is free, so you don't have to spend any money to get this working. And some of the research is open source, which is really nice. For some reason, they don't have any support for Git, only SVN, but they are working on changing that. They tweeted on the 24th of August that they did have one, but they're working on a new implementation of that. You can see that I really like this tweet. It was good. As I mentioned, they support physical tokens, which is really nice. And you can deploy things via HTTPS. Using Let's Encrypt, so it's really easy to do. There's another Docker container that you run. You can't run it too much because there is a rate limit, and they'll be like, we're not going to give you a cert now. Go away and have a break and work it out later. So that's all good. There are the pros and cons very quickly. But my final thing is that Canary tokens aren't going to keep you secure alone. They do need to be implemented in a very holistic security way, where you're doing your logging and monitoring, you're not overloading your users with too much logging and alerting, because normally I have a whole spiel about, don't do too many logs in Slack because people are going to mute the channel. I know I used to do that because I wasn't interested in all of the operations stuff. I just want security alerts. And yeah, that's sort of it. No canaries were harmed in the making of this talk, but I can't say the same for any servers. There are a lot of servers that went down. Thank you.